Flavio Hlabangwane has pleaded guilty to premeditated murder. He killed Tshepang Pitse between the 6th of October and the 13th of November in 2021. In a statement, Hlabangwane details his intention to kill his then-girlfriend after she was allegedly in a relationship with someone else. Newzroom Afrika's Tshegohaco Moagi is in court and she's standing by to give us more. Tshegohaco, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, Dudu. So indeed, interesting developments that have come out of the Joburg High Court sitting in Palm Ridge, where Flavio Hlabangwane has now pleaded guilty to premeditated murder. You'd remember that on Monday he pleaded guilty to murder, to violating a corpse, and also to defeating the ends of justice. However, the state rejecting that murder plea, saying that, in terms of the Criminal Law Act, it would see him get about a minimum of 15 years in prison. And so they then rejected that plea as the state, instead then bringing forth a case of charge of premeditation to Flavio Hlabangwane, but also mentioning and bringing a witness that would testify about the alleged abuse that Tshepang Pitse suffered at the hands of Flavio Hlabangwane. And as you mentioned there in his statement, Hlabangwane deciding today that he's going to plead guilty to premeditated murder. This after yesterday, him telling his advocate Zakani Ndlovu, that she must not cross-examine the witness when the state had concluded with the state witness. And so today he then brings forward this guilty plea. And in the statement that was read out in court, Flavio Hlabangwane telling the court that his then-girlfriend Tshepang Pitse was allegedly in a relationship with somebody else in September of 2021. This is when he found out that she was in a relationship, and then they broke up. He tells the court that even with that breakup, he was very angry and bitter at Tshepang Pitse, and also deciding that they must then end the relationship. And she allegedly then tried to bring that relationship back together and was urging for them to be together once again. However, he says that it was during this time where he looked up on the internet ways to actually kill somebody and to even dismember their body. And he then had the opportunity, he says, on the 6th of October of 2021. You'd remember that this is something that he mentioned already on Monday during his statement, where on the 6th of October 2021, he took Tshepang Pitse's bank card and went to go buy some food for the house. And upon his return, this is when an argument ensued between the two. And so he saw this as the right time to then commit this crime. And after committing the crime, he then dismembered her body and he put various body parts inside his fridge, bearing the head and the torso. And following that, he then told the court today that he then couldn't live in the house alone anymore, so he would bring random women to the house to stay with him, or he couldn't sleep in the house and he'd bring random women in the house to spend a night with him. And that is when one of those very women actually found that dismembered body, the body parts, in his fridge and alerted the community. This case continues on Tuesday, where we are expecting to hear arguments from the state and of course from the defense regarding the kind of sentencing that Flavio Hlabangwane should receive in this regard.
This must have been very difficult for Pitse's family to consume. Tshegohaco, have they been in court?
Interestingly enough, the Pitse family has not been in court this whole week that we have been sitting in the Johannesburg High Court, sitting in Palm Ridge. However, there's been a watching brief that has actually been in court, relaying the message and the information of what has transpired in court. And so the Pitse family, we understand, unable to come to court. You'd understand as well, Dudu, when we had a conversation with Tshepang Pitse's father, he told us that, there are days where he's just not doing well at all, thinking about how his daughter died and how she was killed, and also just thinking about the memories that he actually had with her. So there are moments where he's been unwell and unable to attend court. Even when we were still at the Protea Glen Magistrates Court, there were times when he would not attend the proceedings there. So even here at this court, the family has not been to court, but we'll wait and see what happens come Tuesday.
What's his demeanor like, Flavio Hlabangwane, Tshegohaco?
An interesting question that during the testimony of the witness, Tshepang Pitse, who was the first and only witness that was called to the stand. During her testimony, Flavio would glaze over at her in a look that was quite dreadful, so to speak. He looked very angry at her, and it looked as though, he was also taking notes during the testimony of Tshepang Pitse. But just the look that he gave her was one that was quite frightening, even for me, sitting not too far from where Tshepang was during the court proceedings. But today he seemed somewhat sad, to put it in that way, hanging his head in some parts of the proceedings today. But he did then get up when he was addressed by the judge and admitting to what was in the statement, agreeing to what was in the statement, and then, taking his seat once again. And as immediately today, as the proceedings were concluded, he was then taken back immediately to the cells. Usually in the week, we would see him engaging with his advocate or engaging even with his sister, who has been in court every single day since her brother has been arrested. They would often engage after proceedings have been adjourned for about a minute or two before he's taken back to the cells. But today, he immediately got up off the bench in the dock and headed back to the cells. But he does seem, somewhat, I don't want to say sad, but he does seem, a little, he would look down now and then looking somewhat remorseful, perhaps even in his actions, especially hearing his own statement and hearing the testimony from Tshepang Pitse.
Tshegohaco, Moagi, thank you very much for that detail.